Your best-selling product is always your most valuable product. That is absolutely not true, and I'm going to talk you through why that is. Hello and welcome to Engage and Thrive, also known as EAT, your coffee catch-up with me, your host, Taelon, where we will go through common problems and hurdles that come up in business, marketing and advertising and try and demystify them. I know firsthand how complicated and confusing it can seem with all the different acronyms and all the things to do in business. So let me try and help you be better in business. First things first, let's start with grabbing a coffee. To straight up myth bust this, just because it's a top seller does not mean it's a top performer. And this is something that as a business leader or a business owner, we can get caught up in because it seems really exciting because you're getting the most amount of sales from one product or service. But it doesn't mean that that's the most profitable. So unless you've done an assessment of profitability of that product or service, it doesn't always mean that that's the top performer for your business. And the reason why I say that it could be a top seller but not a top performer is because you may have subsidized it in some way, you may have partnerships, you may have huge discounts, or it may just actually be that it has a drain on your resources and you don't realize until you start really assessing because you have so much going on. Especially if you're delivering a service, sometimes it can be harder to understand the cost actually that what you're spending out for that service and providing to the customer and the extra added value. So today I'm going to introduce you to a framework tool, which I feel like I'm going back to high school business studies back in GCSE days. So being like 15, 16, and we learned about the Boston Matrix. It's known as the BCG Matrix. And basically this is a way of assessing your products or services where they are. So in the takeaways, I will actually go through what those 4 sections are, and I would say you can actually cross-reference this with an episode I did before around a product lifecycle, and that can be a product or service lifecycle. So understanding those two kind of gives you a nice overview assessment of where you are as a business with your products and services that you're selling and what's actually making you the most amount of money. Obviously, this doesn't actually take into account the literal breakdown of your financials and all the calculations, but it's a way of, I suppose, a snapshot understanding of where you are with your products and services. As always, let's go through vocab. And the first one being BCG Matrix, which literally stands for Boston's Consulting Group Matrix. They were the ones that developed it in the early 70s and it stuck. You could just call it a matrix because it's a matrix of 4 quadrants, but essentially it's a strategic framework balancing growth and share. Obviously, as I mentioned, the next one being product life cycle. So this is understanding the stages that your product or service is in based on introduction, growth, maturity, decline, which again will all make sense when we go through the takeaways as they have a same but different situation. Market share. So this is understanding your slice of the pie. So how much of the market do you own? Market growth. The speed at which your industry is growing. PMF. Product market fit. When a product is designed to suit your audience. I feel like this needs a whole nother episode to really understand more details about the importance of product market fit. Beta, so this is an early stage when you're launching a product or service. So you would essentially get people to test your product and service in a live situation as such, but you may have bugs and problems and issues, and it's okay because they're not paying full price or they've got early access, so they understand you may still have some teething problems. As I mentioned, we're going to go through the BCG Matrix, which is made up of 4 quadrants, which means today there are 4 takeaways. Number 1, cash cow. So this is high share, low growth. If you're thinking about the product life cycle, this is when your product or service would be a maturity stage. So you wouldn't have much marketing spend going on. You would really be cashing in on that product or service. It should be very profitable for you and you'd be maintaining the quality, but it wouldn't have loads of peaks and troughs of growth and decline. It just kind of like stays where it is what it is. Products that you may know that are in maturity stage, a cash cow, would be the Hermes Birkin bag, Cadbury's Dairy Milk, Microsoft Office, Nike Air Max. They are what they are, they exist, you can get them all the time, they're maturity. They're not going anywhere anytime soon, I say. And so stereotypically, these are stable products or services. However, something you would want to ask yourself in this stage is, am I protecting and optimizing other things in my business as like a backup? Because yes, this is stable. Yes, this is what's bringing you in the most amount of money. It's in maturity stage, it is stable, but you never know how things can change. And that's why I'm saying they are stable at the moment. Number 2, stars. So if you want to align this with the product life cycle, this is growth stage. So this is high market share, high growth. This requires investment, and you need to keep investing and keep marketing and keep going if you want it to turn into a cash cow. So in this stage, it's really about defending your position and trying to catch the wave, trying to really like double down on your audience and make sure it turns into your cash cow. Again, examples of products and services that exist that are in the star phase is Netflix, Canva Pro, OpenAI, ChatGPT. A question you want to ask yourself here is, am I giving my stars the focus and fuel they need to grow and lead? Because you want to be that market leader to be that cash cow. Number 3, question marks. This in the product lifecycle stage would be introduction phase. And sometimes people call this early growth, but really this is when you're entering the market. So you don't know quite yet where this is going to go. Is this going to be a cash cow? Is this not going to be successful? This has got low market share and high growth. And this is really where you need to understand, is it worth continuing to invest money in it and actually going to launch it? Or is it actually that you retire the idea? So this is when people talk about beta phases and finding a product market fit. You need to make sure that your product or service is right for the market. More the fact, does the market need your product or service? Does your audience need your product or service? And therefore, will they buy it? Will they be running and queuing to buy your product or service? Examples of products and services that are in question mark phase is BYD. It's a car company from China, and it's actually overtaken Tesla for electric vehicles. Will it be able to maintain it? Will it sustain it? Will it become the cash cow in the electric vehicle market? Another one is Skins by Kim Kardashian and Road by Hailey Bieber. Again, at the moment, they are getting a lot of attraction and they have high growth, potentially because they're influencers, but can they sustain that? Will that turn into actually a cash cow in the future? Is it just the opportunities, liking it right now, and therefore they have to seize the opportunity, but then they may need to pivot because it's not sustainable? A question you want to ask yourself here is it worth continuing to invest, or do you cut your losses now? And the final one, number 4, is dogs. So dogs in the product life cycle sense would be decline, and in this quadrant would actually be low market share, low growth. So this is really when you need to exit, diverse, or reinvent. Demand is fading, market is shrinking, and this could be down to so many different variables. It could be that you've missed the trick if you think of the likes of Nokia and BlackBerry, or is it just that the market has changed so much and so you need to reinvent yourself and come back? And I say this because there are some great examples of products that were dogs and they've been reinvented or rebooted. To give you one that I love is Polaroid. So Polaroid camera, obviously film cameras and all that were quite retro and everyone went digital, and now retro is cool, retro is a good thing. So Polaroid cameras have had a comeback. Jo Malone have a lot of fragrances, and what they do is when a product becomes in decline, they actually put it into the archives. So when it's in the archive, then actually it becomes more exclusive and then people want it more because it's really hard to get. There's other things like Metaverse, that is a dog and probably should be put to bed, but hasn't fully been put to bed yet. A question you want to ask yourself here is it draining me? Is there a way we can bring it back and revive it, vintage luxury reboot, or do we just let it go? So, as a wrapper, just to understand, your top seller might not be your top performer. Your top seller may be in your stars, and it's not your top performer in your cash cow. And if you have your cash cows that are earning you loads of money, what are you doing as your backup to make sure you can keep the business afloat? That if anything happened, your cash cow suddenly went into decline because of a change in market, what are your backups? What I would say is use this opportunity to assess where your products and services are in those 4 quadrants, and then also understand what you should be doing to create those backup plans. So for example, you can take profit from your cash cows, that profit that you're generating, and actually put it into some question marks and test other opportunities. But using this framework and the product life cycle should be able to give you a good overarching idea. And like I said, this obviously doesn't take into consideration all your financials, so you would need to overlay this with the actual cost that things are costing your business. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Engage and Thrive with your host Taelon, and see you next week.